Episode 85. This week we cover Haven. Haven, the name of this episode, and wow, is it a dull one. One of the dullest episodes of Star Trek you'll ever see in your entire life, no matter which series you watch. The Enterprise is on its way to a planet called Haven for some R&R. There's rumors and legend that the planet has healing powers, and you just magically get healed if you go to this planet Haven. They're on their way there, and then they get word that something's being transported aboard the ship. Riker and Troi are in the transporter room after Riker is watching some weird holographic jazz concerts that reminded me of the Star Wars holiday special where they watched Diane Carroll and all these other holograms. But once they get there, Deanna Troi walks in just randomly for no reason. She's like, "What's going on?" And then this magical suitcase beams aboard, which was specific for Troi, who was in the transporter room for no reason whatsoever, wasn't summoned there, just showed up. And the suitcase said it had something for her, and there's all these jewels and emeralds in this thing. And she's like, "Oh yeah, it's a wedding gift. I forgot I was supposed to get married to a guy who happens to be on planet Haven right now. Forgot all about it." Apparently she had an arranged marriage from her father's side. Her father, of course, being human. They didn't say why this human American guy would make an arranged marriage for his, very, very young daughter, but apparently he did. So the family beams aboard with the fiance, and then they get word that Troy's mother wants to beam aboard. So the family's like, "Well, we better leave because we don't get along with her." And then Troy's mother beams aboard, and there's Waxana Troi, and she's with her valet, Mr. Holm. She's ordering people around. Troi gets mad. Then they spend the rest of the episode. Troi will have an emotional outburst to boot her mother and storm off. The mother is trying to mother the grown child, Deanna, and that goes on for the rest of the episode. And then there's bickering between Troi and the family of the fiance. The fiance, Wyatt, he's drawn pictures of some woman he thought was going to be Deanna. It was not. She's like, "You had dreams of this woman?" He's like, "Yeah, my whole life I figured it was you, but I guess I'll marry you instead now. I guess you're a good enough second place." They have a ship approaching during all of this, and it's basically a leper ship where all these people whose race was thought to be extinct are headed towards Haven in the hopes that Haven's legend about magical healing powers is true. Picard is in a quandary because he can't let the ship go to the planet, but at the same time he can't destroy the ship, so he doesn't know what to do. But he says, "Well, while I'm figuring that out, let's have a party." So they have a giant wedding party for Deanna and Wyatt. Data at his very, very best in this horrible episode as he's looking on at the shenanigans, totally enthralled. He's soaking up Mr. Hom, drinking glass after glass of champagne. He's enjoying watching the families fight with each other. Deanna Troi storms out. Data's loving it. It's human behavior at its best in Data's eyes. But then they're getting close to the wedding. They're arguing over the cultural differences because they hadn't figured that out despite the fact that it was an arranged marriage when they were children. So they've had over 20 years to figure all these details out, and they wait until hours before the actual ceremony to discuss it, which made no sense at all, but that's what the way he went with. Then when they put a tractor beam on that ship to haul it away from Haven, the people on the ship finally contact the Enterprise. There's the woman that Wyatt had been drawing. He shows up on the bridge for verification, I guess. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the woman." And Wyatt, under the pretense he's helping get supplies for the people on the leper ship, knocks out the transporter chief, beams over to the ship, meaning he can't come back to the Enterprise, He's like, sorry, Deanna, but I guess the wedding's off. I'm going to cure these people and live with them for the rest of my life. And Deanna's like, okay, goodbye. And then they leave. They never got the R&R. They just left. Some interesting notes in this one. No Mr. Worf and no Wesley Crusher in this episode. They were MIA for this. Troi, of course, back. She was the central figure in this. It was the first appearance of both Mr. Home and Deanna Troi. Deanna Troi, of course, Majel Barrett, who was the voice of the computer, but it was her first on-screen appearance for The Next Generation. Of course, she played Nurse Chapel in the original, but this was the first time she had portrayed Mrs. Troi. Mr. Home spoke at the very end of this episode, despite the fact that they very specifically said he could not talk, and he never said another word the rest of the series. They just threw in the little joke at the end where he could talk, despite establishing he could not talk and never going back to him talking ever again. But that's pretty much episode 85.